There was one space left. There was one space left. Because Aisha is living there. But the other two khulafa, they passed away in their own circumstances. And then it is narrated that Aisha herself, when she passed away at the age of, in the year 57 AH. So she lived way after Ali, in the time of Muawiyah. She passed away in the time of Muawiyah. That when Aisha passed away, radiallahu anha, she said, don't bury me here. I want to be buried with my other co-wives, the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Why did she do this? Maybe because of Umar, maybe because she felt it was appropriate to be with the women. We don't know. There was a space left over there. Now, in the lifetime of Umar ibn al-Khattab as well, Umar ibn al-Khattab was the first to really expand the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ and solidify it. And in that expansion, he solidified the roofs of the wives' houses, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the house of the Prophet ﷺ was solidified after his death. For his whole life, the roof was made out of leaf. And as for this, can we go back to the slide? As for this fourth grave over here, as for this fourth space over here, there are traditions in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and in a number of books of hadith, but all of them are weak or very weak. But there are traditions, there are narrations that Isa ibn Maryam will be buried over here. Okay, so there are narrations found in our source books that this place, where's my marker? Here it is. That this place over here will be for Isa ibn Maryam. Nothing authentic. So we do not say for sure. But there are sources in our own books, including Tirmidhi. Now the isnad is not fully authentic. So we say Allahu A'lam, that will be the case or not. Now, in the caliphate of Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, who ruled from 88 to 91 Hijrah. In the caliphate of Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, who ruled from 88 to 91 Hijrah, he decided to expand the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ in all four directions. Now, which way is the Qibla? South. The Qibla is south, right? So he decided to expand the masjid south and east and west and north. All four directions. And this raised a huge problem because to the east are the houses of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, still standing for 90 years. Okay, this is around 90 Hijrah. So they've been standing there for almost a century. Now, nobody lived there. Nobody lived there. After all, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ did not have biological descendants, right? And it was inherited by the Ahl al-Bayt overall. By the family of the Prophet ﷺ, Ali Zain al-Abidin and al-Baqir and others. Basically, not by inherited, I mean managed by them. That they're the ones taking charge of managing it. And Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik insisted that he will purchase all of these lands at whatever cost. He's going to purchase from whoever is in control, from the Ahl al-Bayt, and that the masjid will encompass all of these little houses. Why would he do this? Why would he want to do this? This has raised a lot of discussion. Some say that he was a typical political ruler. One of the things the political rulers always want to do, they want to leave their mark on society. And of the ways they want to leave their mark is to build glorious masjids. Every ruler, there's a ruler now, I don't want to mention his name, of some Arab country, building one of the biggest masjids in the world at his state money, whatnot. And he's not particularly a religious man, and state funds, the people are starving. But no, he wants to build a masjid in his name, close to the beach and whatnot. Khalas, this is the way of the rulers. That's the way they are. This is the وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. So some say he was just being a typical ruler, that he wants to now build a mega mosque. And of course the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ is a very noble mosque to build. And so he doesn't care about these things, about the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the houses of the Prophet ﷺ's wives. He just wants his will done. And that is one interpretation. And of course, since he's the Khalifa, he gets his will done. Doesn't matter who's going to object. And by the way, in 90 Hijrah, who's alive amongst the Sahaba? In Medina? Nobody. Not a single Sahabi is left in Medina. There's probably one or two in Kufa and other places, very old. Some of the younger children that were still alive, now they're 100 years old. Yes, some of the Sahaba lived beyond this. The last Sahabi died 110 Hijrah. But not in Medina. Not in Medina. In 90 Hijrah, no Sahabi is left in Medina. They've all gone. Okay, come on, it's 90 Hijrah, think about it. Who is alive? I mean, everybody, the major Sahaba, Hurairah, Aisha, they all passed away in the maximum of the 50s, 60s. They're all gone by now. So, in 90 Hijrah, none of the Sahaba are alive. And he commanded that these hujurat be purchased and that the masjid be then expanded to include the grave. And so he expanded it from a southern side. So, from the mihrab is here, he made it 20 feet forward. And where he made it is where the masjid is in our times, the mihrab. Right? What he expanded forward is exactly where it ends in our times. Clear? Right? Nobody had the audacity or the foolishness or whatever you want to call it to go beyond. He did it, and that is where it remained. And he was the only one in the history of Islam to expand eastward as well. And where he expanded was where it remained. Nobody after him had the audacity or foolishness, call it what you will, to go beyond what he did. Right? Even the latest Saudi expansions, if you look at it, they began from behind the Rawdah, from behind the blessed grave. They did not want to go from the blessed grave. And that's why it's a little bit, design is, in the front has a little bit of a, jutting out, and then the rest of it goes big. Correct? Right? They did not want to go beyond, even in this modern expansion, which is the largest expansion in the history of Islam. They did not want to include that beyond. It's just a matter of respect. Only Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik did this. Now, this is one interpretation. There is another interpretation as well. And this seems to have some legitimacy. Allah knows best. Seems to have some legitimacy. That it's beyond just wanting to build a big masjid. There's actually some politics involved as well. What are some of the politics involved? So, the Umayyads had some huge rivalry, major problems from the Ahlul Bayt, obviously. We talked about Karbala has just taken place a decade ago, right? We talked about the major, and the people did not like the Umayyads. And the descendants of the Prophet are well respected and beloved. It's obvious, right? I mean, it is human nature that the Prophet's descendants would be given that awe and respect. And we need to understand, imagine if Hussein radiallahu anhu was in front of us, how would you feel? How would you feel? Would you want him to be the Khalifa or Fulan ibn Fulan in the palace? Who would you want? Psychologically, forget who Islamically, like whoever's in charge should remain in charge. Yes, that is the case, right? But psychologically, who would sway your vote, as we say, right? And Hussein is now killed in a vicious manner. And his son, who is his son? Come on guys, please. Ali Zain al-Abidin, right? Ali Zain al-Abidin now returns to Medina. And the people, now Ali Zain al-Abidin was the most apolitical of the early Ahlul Bayt. Probably because of the massacre. Because remember, he was a young man sick in the tent. He was a young man sick in the tent. He witnessed, he was there. He lost everybody of the male relatives. He was the only, all of the progeny from Hussein goes through Ali. Because he doesn't, it's all gone after that, right? Because everybody else was massacred. So Ali Zain al-Abidin, there was a lot of clamoring that he should take charge. And the people loved him. And who would not love him? These are all Ahlul Bayt. And it is said that he would regularly sit in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, because after all that is his house, and sometimes even preach from there into the masjid. Because remember, we talked about there not being any barrier, right? Now this is his house. How can he be prevented from going to his house and speaking in his house? The only thing to be done, eliminate the house. Get him out somewhere. Because psychologically, preaching from the qabr of the Prophet, imagine, like the background would be the qabr of the Prophet, right? So this is another theory, and it is mentioned in the early books as well, that this is a motive for expanding to include the houses, the hujurat of the Prophet ﷺ. And frankly, I am persuaded by that theory. It makes a lot more sense, because I cannot imagine that it was just a matter. If he wanted to expand